how to ride in the mud and wet and bog. I'm going to teach you all you need to know in this video. Bro! But first guys, if you could please hit that like and subscribe button, that would make a huge difference to the channel, and I'm trying to grow it and bring you better content. Any support would be greatly appreciated. Thanks guys, back to the video. So I thought, why not give you guys some helpful tips as to get you guys ripping in the wet, because I know this is something that I really struggled with. Growing up in South Africa, moving to Europe, racing in Europe, honestly, for the first 2 or 3 years, I was such a fish out of water. I had no idea how to ride in the wet, and I honestly hated it. And now I quite enjoy it, to be honest. But it took a long time, and there were a lot of things that I figured out over the way that made a huge difference. So hopefully by the end of today, you are going to be stoked to go and head into winter and get into that mud bath. First of all, let's talk about setup. So as you can see, just make it nice for yourself. Get yourself a nice rain jacket, waterproof. I've actually got waterproof pants. I've got fully waterproof socks by Sealskins, actually. No affiliation with them, but they work a treat. So that's step one. You want to be dry. The worst thing for me is being cold and wet, and your feet being wet and freezing cold. Oh, it's just horrible. So that's step number one. Number two, you want to set up your bike. Put on some mud tires. Please, for the love of everything holy, put on some mud tires. It makes a huge difference. And it's amazing to me when I go to a bike park and I see how many people just run around with dry tires, no matter what the conditions, and they're like, oh, it's fine. When you put on a good mud tire, you will see the difference. You will. And let me know down in the comments if you've tried them or if not. Otherwise, feel free to ask me which tires I recommend, and I will definitely let you know. So mud tires, number one. Number two, make sure they are the grippiest compound you can have. Don't go for any trail compounds or anything like that. If you want to have grip and confidence, you need the grippiest compound, the softest compound you can have. And luckily in the winter, the compounds don't break down so quickly because it's not so hot. So the rubber generally lasts longer anyway. Then you want to soften those tire pressures. When I say soften, I mean really soften. So I work in PSI. It's going to be hard for me to explain in bar, but my normal PSI is 23 or 24 in the front and 27 or 28 in the back when it's dry conditions. But when it's wet, I drop that down to 20 or 21 in the front and 24, 25 at the back. Now that is really soft. I'm 82 kilos. For me, that is very soft pressure, but honestly, it is monumental. I can't say it enough how much of a difference it's going to make to you. When you get on that trail and you ride with soft tires, when you hit a rock or a root that's wet with a hard tire, it deflects. So if you go into a rock garden, it's going to be like bang, 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 like ping pong. But if you soften those up, it conforms to everything. So when you, especially if you've got a bit of speed, you might hear the odd rim ding, like dang, dang, but it conforms and you go straight and you don't deflect, and it's so confidence inspiring. At least for me, that was the biggest game changer that I ever had. And it was about 7 years ago now. The reason I figured it out is because I actually had a slow puncture in my front wheel. I felt amazing, and it was a mud race, and I couldn't understand why I felt so good. And then I checked my tire pressure and I was running 17 PSI on the front wheel. And then I thought, wow, okay, maybe this has something to do with it. So I went up in pressure and immediately it felt worse. So then 17 is a little bit low because you're gonna, roll off jumps and things. But then I pumped it up and I got to a midpoint, and for me, 20 or 21 PSI works really, really well. And obviously if you're lighter, you need to go down, and heavier, go up a little bit. So that's the two most important things. On the bike setup side, other than that, I would say you want to generally speed up your rebound, because in colder conditions, the oil is going to thicken. It's going to slow down your rebound, which is going to make the bike feel like horrendous. So I always try to keep my rebound the same feeling, whether it's hot or cold, and you've got to sometimes go do some drastic changes with the rebound to make that happen. And other than that, maybe would soften the suspension a little bit, but generally that's the only thing I play with. Right, kit setup, bike setup. Let's get into actual riding. So I'm going to give you tips as in what situations what you should try to think about. First of all, before we continue, if you guys could smash that like and subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. I'm really trying to push this channel and I need you guys' support. I'm putting in as much effort as humanly possible into this, and hopefully this brings you guys some value and gets you faster and safer out on the trail. All right, now we want to get down to the nitty-gritty of actually riding in the mud. So first of all, you want to think about your braking. Now, you're going to slide way more when it's wet, so you've got to give yourself more time to brake. So whether that's a steep section, whether it's a turn, you need to think about your braking points. If you brake too late, you're going straight off the track. So that is point number one. Point number two, if you've got wet obstacles, roots and rocks and things like that, try your damnedest not to brake on it, because as soon as you brake on those things, you will slide, that wheel will lock up and you will lose control. So especially with the front wheel. So if you have to brake, use your rear, but yeah, try your best not to. So do your braking before you come to obstacles and try to avoid obstacles as well. So if you've got roots and rocks, try to just pop over them, bunny hop over them, lift that, especially the front wheel, lift the front wheel over it, unweight, because if you push into a wet root or wet rock, depending on how wet and slick it is, you will slide and probably crash. And I know, and I've done this many times. So that's the point number two. It also depends on how fast you're going. Generally in the wet, speed is your friend, because when you're going through mud, actually that speed is going to keep you moving forward, keep your momentum driving forward, and stop you from losing your balance side to side, because when it's thick mud, it can often just suck you down and end up making you do a turn where you didn't expect to. But of course, you've got to keep in mind that braking, because if you go too fast, there's a point where you cross and it's no return. So if you're going too fast and you can't slow down, it's game over. And I actually had this happen to me this last week and went over the bars on this e-bike because I went into a section a bit too fast and I realized too late that I needed to brake, and that was all she wrote. We've also got, you got something to think about when you're jumping. When you're hitting a wet takeoff, especially if there's ruts or if it's very slimy and greasy, you don't want to turn and change direction at that takeoff. Anywhere near it. You want to be straight, because as soon as you turn, that front wheel is going to slide, and if you do that on a takeoff of a jump, well, you can only just imagine what will happen. And I've done this as well. So speaking from years of experience here, I have done this. You do not want this. So you just have to think about it. It's a completely different experience. You have to treat the wet with respect. But if you know how to approach it, you can ride really fast in the wet. And honestly, in some conditions, you could ride pretty much as fast as the dry. Now, conditions-wise, a lot of people, when it starts pouring down, they think, oh no, it's going to be terrible. And sometimes they may have ridden the track when it's been a bit slick and it rained maybe the night before, and you've got this greasy layer, and it's almost unrideable. It's so slick. And then it rains, and they think, oh, well, now there's no point even trying. But actually, contrary to popular belief, the track is often better because it washes this greasy layer off the roots and rocks and keeps your tires clean, and it often creates more grip. So when I see it raining, I've got a big smile on my face because I know that the grip is normally pretty good, especially if there's so much water that there's a river. Man, you can absolutely send it. Treat it like it's dry. If you keep your wheels in the river, it's sick. It's one of the coolest feelings because it's wet, but you feel like you're going the same speed as it's dry. The only thing that's slowing you down is the actual rolling resistance. And something else to consider when it's wet is you're going to roll slower. So if you're coming up to a jump or a section, you've got to think you're going to be rolling slower. It's going to sap your speed. So you've got to judge for that. So if you're coming to a jump, which you maybe haven't done for a while, go faster. So there's a lot of things to think about, but if you've got the right setup and you've got the right approach and you know what the conditions are going to do, stick where the water is, drop those tire pressures, approach it with respect, don't be too hard on your braking, always give yourself more time, try to avoid braking on rocks and roots, and try to always unweight over rocks and roots to not push into them too much if possible. Do your braking on the dirt, unweight, back to dirt, because the rocks and roots are always going to be the problematic point. And just think about it when you're approaching a steep section. Go in slower because you know you're not going to have as much power when it comes to braking because you're going to start sliding. The last point that I think that you can do is always look for catches.
try to avoid off cambers. Think about when it's really muddy, there will normally be a catch at the bottom of the track, even if there's an off camber, or there'll be a little berm. You want to push off things and look off things that you can bank off of. So even if it means a bit more zigzagging on the track, that's fine, but that is going to enable you to turn quicker and be more aggressive and have more speed, because if you go too fast into a section and there's nothing to bank off of, both wheels are just going to wash out and you are going to be hitting the deck like a rugby player that just scored a try. So think about that. That's my best advice. I'm actually quite impressed with myself. That was some pretty solid advice. I've been doing this for over a decade and have had a lot of crashes, and honestly now I really enjoy riding in the wet, and all of these things have helped me tremendously. So really study them, live by them, and I hope this gets you safely down the trail, faster down the trail, and getting you having more fun. If you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to see more how-to videos, just click the playlist right up here.